What is up, Internet Basketball Junkies? Coach Hack here. And tonight we're breaking down one of basketball's most talked about offensive systems. Joining me today is Adam Pike, whose article on Coach Iisalo's offensive philosophy has become essential reading, and Kevin Schott from the Scoring Factory, whose film studies have helped coaches understand the flow series much more in depth. We'll cover the complete offensive philosophy, how the flow series fits into the larger system, and the concepts behind modern advantage basketball. This is a show that I'm excited about, and I'm excited about it because I assembled what I consider the dream team to break down this philosophy. Adam, you're a writer for the Memphis Grizzlies, an independent journalist here. And Kevin, you have the YouTube channel for the Scoring Factory, where you're making in-depth breakdowns. And the one that really caught my attention was this one on Coach Iisalo and his offense here. So first of all, I wanted to give some credit to you guys for your work that you've done putting this information together. And I think the first part of this is going to be your article, Adam. So you've put this article on your blog, which is about string principles and two-way motion, QB12, airtime decision making, and it was just packed with all kinds of useful information that I think a lot of coaches can learn from. And you've packaged in some different video along the way to help some of these concepts really sink in. But I'm interested, this work, it had to take some time for you to put together. Talk to me a little bit about your process of understanding enough about this offensive system to put a comprehensive guide to it together like you did.
Yeah, so this was kind of an accompanying piece with something I wrote after the season, which was looking at every play that the Grizzlies ran this season. And I had them all diagrammed, and then I have an Excel document where it goes every half court possession from the season, and then it sums up to like the different efficiencies and frequencies they use. So like an Iverson alignment, Horns alignment, 5-out spacing, all stuff like that. This one is specific to like the cognition of the players. I looked at all five players at the same time for every half court possession from the Grizzlies game against the Timberwolves. It was the last game Jaren played before the trade deadline. And my goal was to touch on the points I made in the first article about like the QB12s, what do you do when it's a 2-on-1, two-way motion, putting the defense in motion. And I put this together just to show what it looks like over a whole game. And you can see like every different play from the game I scored with 6 different principles for every player, and then it's all summed up.
Yeah, this has become a comprehensive manual. I think it's the definitive source for understanding this Iisalo philosophy. And I would encourage anybody to check that out. Quickly, how would somebody, if they wanted to find this, what would they search for? And how would they come across this to search it up and read it on their own?
The easiest way is to probably go to my Twitter, which is Grizzlies Film, and my Medium is in my bio. I think it's the second most recent article I posted. But if you just want to search for it, if you go String Principles Tuomas Iisalo, it'll come up right away.
And Kevin Schott, who's got this Scoring Factory YouTube channel, he's got all kinds of nice videos on here. There's one on Ben McCollum. I think your latest one, Coach, is on next pick and roll coverage. But the one that really caught my attention was this flow series video right here on Coach Iisalo. I love your channel, truly informative stuff. I love how you put the content together. Talk to me a little bit about how you create your ideas for the videos that you make and maybe what you're trying to accomplish with the YouTube channel here.
A lot of this comes from wanting to be the best high school coach and coach in general that I can be. And I take a lot of inspiration from the people that do coaching at an extremely high level and just trying to learn from the best of the best. And that's not just the NBA, that's college, that's high school, and that's international basketball. And that's originally where I got this idea from to break down Iisalo's offense, is looking at the numbers throughout his career and the things that he was able to accomplish. It's staggering. And so it really drew my interest into how he was able to accomplish these things. And then, getting inspiration from Adam and others, diving into the Flow series, which for me drew my interest so much because I think it was something that I could apply into my own team at a lower level than a professional team, but still using those concepts to try to get the most out of my offense is really what spurred my interest. My goal with the channel is to really create a central hub for coaches. If they want to learn about X concept or Y defensive coverage, it's a place for them that they can go and look at all of these different ideas across the sport of how to accomplish different things. And that's really where I'm trying to go with the channel. And I just want to help as many people as I can as I go along my journey.
Yeah, I love the content. You've got, topics of great variety, and you go in depth. It's usually 10-minute videos where you're explaining things that I think a lot of coaches could find beneficial. But tonight, we're really talking about the Coach Iisalo offensive philosophy, and we're not here to kind of memorize plays. We're here to try to understand why Coach Iisalo is influencing so many coaches around the world, why his style of coaching is kind of the future of basketball coaching, in my opinion. And I wouldn't want to do it with two other people than you guys, other than Coach Iisalo. If I could get Coach Iisalo to explain his system, I would gladly bump you guys out of the way. But if I can't get him, and I can't get him, you guys are my next two picks here. So I really wanted to kick things off with an explanation from you, Adam. You've been watching the Grizzlies all season. I tasked you with the idea of grabbing one clip that kind of defines a lot of these offensive principles from Coach Iisalo. And I wanted to throw that up on the screen and allow you to kind of talk through some of these principles that we're going to learn about here tonight.
Yeah, so I'll just touch on this briefly. So the play is wing entry, which is just what the Grizzlies call their empty pick and roll spacing, and then it's reversed to the second side, and that is just top spacing. So top spacing, you're going to have the two lift behinds, top two. It's easy to remember for me. So this is part of the Grizzlies' flow offense. They just, instead of starting with spread, they're starting with the wing entry. And the idea here is you're attacking from multiple angles because the defense is always wrong. So a comparison Coach Iisalo likes to make is in Jurassic Park. If you watch, there's the scene where they're talking to one of the keepers, and he's saying the Raptors, they're attacking the fence systematically, but at different angles every time, checking like if the electricity is running on the wall. And it's the same idea. So you're running pick and roll here, pick and roll on the second side, pick and roll on the third side at a different angle. And the idea is the defense has to be wrong eventually, and you're going to find the advantage. Because no matter what the defense does, there's a solution for it.
Yeah, I love this, Coach. Can you run it back a couple more times just so the audience can get a clear picture of what we're looking at here? But I really am interested to dive in more to the pace and the spacing and the flow of the offensive system, the decision making, the advantage creation. Is there anything else to really unpack on what we're seeing here? Is there any preview of some of the principles that we'll talk about later on that we could see in this clip?
Yeah, so the first one I'll touch on is since it's out of top spacing, the final advantage, you get the double lifts, and that's part of the string principles I'll talk about. It's synonymous with like the term the wheel that people have used as well. So you're going to hear it both ways tonight. And then at the end here, one of the things I really want to point out is when the ball's reversed back to Cam Spencer, he goes into 1-5 pick and roll with Zach Edey, and there's a tag from Kawhi Leonard. The idea here is when the tag is coming to Zach Edey, you want the ball going in the opposite direction because it creates long closeouts. And so Kawhi's going one way, the ball's going the opposite way. It's going to be an impossible closeout for him. So what he does here is he runs Aldama off the line, but Aldama already knows what to do. And what Aldama is doing is the airtime decision. Closeout decision is something else you'll hear. Same thing. And it's every time you want a 60 effective field goal shot. So here he gets the shot at the rim. If he could have shot the three-pointer without the contest from Kawhi, that is considered a 60 effective field goal shot, because even if he can get to it, as long as his rhythm doesn't change, and he's wide open. And Another 90s movie reference is a Matrix reference that Coach Iisalo likes to make. It's part of the Matrix where it's there is no spoon. And if there's no contest, there's no spoon, you're wide open for the 3-point shot. So those are some of the ideas and why I think this is a really good representation of the play, just because it shows multiple of them all at the same time. And you get the 60 effective field goal shot at the end, which sometimes when you look through it is a little hard to find, but this is a good example for me.
Yeah, I think that is a really good example for no other reason than just that Kawhi Leonard is the one getting taken advantage of. And if Kawhi Leonard can't guard it, it's probably good offense because he can guard about any kind of offense out there. But before we really unpack this offensive system, I wanted to talk about Coach Iisalo. I think a lot of people in the coaching community are becoming obsessed with Coach Iisalo and his style of coaching. I think it's important for us to kind of establish why Coach Iisalo matters, why the system matters before we really dive into the system. And Adam, you are covering the Grizzlies as a writer. The Grizzlies go kind of out of NBA circles to hire Coach Iisalo, which I think perked a lot of people's ears up. I'm sure you did some research to find out some background information and kind of Coach Iisalo's rise through the coaching ranks. Can you give us some background information on Coach Iisalo and just why coaches should care about what Coach Iisalo is doing with the Grizzlies?
Yeah, so 2 summers ago, he was hired as an assistant coach, and the Grizzlies really went out of the NBA twice with Noah LaRoche and Tuomas Iisalo at the same time, hiring 2 non-NBA assistant coaches to their coaching staff. So Coach Iisalo is from Finland. He's born in capital Helsinki, but he played in the Finnish league for about a decade, and he won a Finnish cup, I think, in 2009. Now, he had a long career. He played for the national Finnish team as well. But what he said in his own words is at 11 years old, he knew he wanted to be a coach. I think part of that was his own skill level in basketball, but also he really enjoyed the X's and O's aspect and player development part. So Finland, I've taken a couple of these names. These are really like inspirations for him when he was playing. He played for Mahalo Popasevich, who was one of his first coaches, and he's like a very famous Finnish coach. Henrik Detman was the Finnish national team head coach that Coach Iisalo played under. And the third one is Ari Manninen, that's like his real mentor. So when you talk about coaching trees, maybe like Mitch Johnson comes from under Popovich's coaching tree. You could be like Harry Manninen was really Tuomas Iisalo's mentor on his coaching role. And then just the fourth one I want to touch on is Gordy Herbert, who is a Finnish Canadian citizen. He is the national team coach for Canada, and they're playing here in Toronto, where I live, in a week and a half, and I'm going to go see those 2 games. But then after his playing career, he got right into head coaching. So first it was for I believe it was a Finnish team, Tapalen or something like that. Sorry, I'm not really good with the Finnish words, but he coached for the Finnish team. He got immediately called up to the Merlins in Germany, Krasheim, and that was really his big breakthrough because he was playing in a higher level German league, and he was playing in the German league, and then he got found for Telekom Basketball, who's another German team in the first level, and he went on to coach them. And then just a few years ago, he graduated to the Euro Cup, he would probably call it, in the French league with Paris Basketball. And so in 2004, they won the Euro Cup, they got promoted to the Euro League, and they won the 2024 French Cup. A lot of his inspirations outside like the Finnish coaches I mentioned before, I've heard him reference the 7 seconds or less Suns, the kind of like the beautiful game Spurs with motion weak, motion strong, and the Steve Kerr, Steph Curry Warriors, because that was really all those 3 teams were during his playing time up to when he's coaching in the NBA, basically. So that's a lot of his inspiration for coaching.
Yeah, fantastic background there. Coach Kevin, you have this YouTube channel. You get to decide what topics you're going to make videos on. You chose Coach Iisalo's flow offense. What did you see in that topic that made you think coaches need to see this? I think this is a kind of a good way to explain, why coaches should be interested. And if you think there's enough interest to make a video on it, I think that's good reason for coaches to think, this is something I should be paying attention to.
And funnily enough, hearing Adam say that Iisalo mentioned the 7 seconds or less Suns or the Steve Kerr Warriors, I've made videos on both of those subjects as well. And I could see that he took that inspiration from there. But it really is something that it's a piece. The flow series is a piece of a larger puzzle that he's put together as his offense. And I think it's beneficial to coaches at all levels. And if you look at the video and the thumbnail for it, it says elite offense for coaches at all levels. And it is really, I think, applicable to coaches at all levels, because while, yes, the reads are higher level, you can teach that into coaches, especially into these players with constraints and using CLA in practice. It really is a great template to build off of. So many coaches are obsessed with, running 10 different set plays. But if you can really master one series and teach your players the reads that go within that, it kind of eliminates a lot of the need for this whole menu or Rolodex of plays that a lot of coaches want to implement. And so I really think it's a great spot or a great foundational building block for a lot of this modern conceptual offense for coaches, whether it's freshman ball, JV, high school, middle school. I think it's a really great foundational piece.
Yeah, and at the end of our talk here tonight, I think we'll try to talk to at least a little bit about how this might transfer into like a high school coaching level, since a lot of my audience is high school basketball coaches. But Adam, after covering Coach Iisalo on a day in and day out basis with the Grizzlies, what do you think people misunderstand about his coaching style or his offensive philosophy?
Yeah, just to touch on what Kevin said too. So one of the things that makes Coach Iisalo very attractive is he did this in like the Bundesliga, he did it in Finnish level, and he's done it like in LNB Pro A in the Euro Cup. And so one of the things that really drives him is like the constraints of you don't have 7-footers in these leagues. You don't have athletic wings who can defend, or maybe you have like small point guards and they can't really defend at the point of attack as well as like the NBA players. So that was really like a selling point for me for implementing it at the different levels, and we've seen this at different levels too. So I just wanted to add that. Sorry, what was the question again that you asked?
Any kind of misunderstandings about what Coach Iisalo's system actually is from covering it on a day in and day out basis? What the average coach might think they know about this system, and what do you think is kind of different about it in reality?
Yeah, I'll say so. Really, his goal was when he's implementing this offense with a new team is he starts at the beginning and he calls it reverse engineering. So you'll see all these triggers, all these different pick and roll entries he has, but he's really starting with the end goal in mind. So he wants the 60 effective field goal shot, or 60 true shooting if you include shooting fouls. He wants that 60%, and how is he going to get there? And I think that's really interesting to me. Instead of just saying, here's our Iverson cut and here's what we do out of it, he's thinking, how do we get to this with this end result in mind?
Yeah, this is clearly where basketball is heading right now. You mentioned some of the influences of Coach Iisalo and how those have kind of combined to make this system. But coaches are wanting to play faster. They're wanting to play more conceptually. And this is one way to do it. This isn't the modern offense blueprint, but this is a modern offense blueprint, one that's been successful at a variety of different levels. And a lot of your favorite coaches out there are stealing principles and ideas from Coach Iisalo, even coaches that are regarded even higher than Coach Iisalo at this point. I'll throw this out to either one of you. Do you think this is kind of a revolutionary thing, or is this kind of something where it's just like, those influences that you mentioned, Adam, kind of just packaged up in a different way?
Go ahead, Kevin.
I'll just say I think really his mindset is a great mindset for a lot of coaches to take, because it's really teaching you to lean into the why you're doing certain things as a coach, or why you're doing certain things as an offense or as a team, right? Like Adam said, it's not as much about, oh, here's this really cool Iverson cut, or here's this really cool double stagger set that we ran. It's what are we getting out of this? Right. And so when you start to reverse engineer, you try to engineer victory. Well, we need to score more than the other team. Well, how do we score more efficiently? And then you start to come up with, can we get to 60% on these shots? Where do we find those shots? We're finding them at the rim. We're finding them with open shot threes, no contest. And then we get into all the other things. So how do we create those shots? And then you start to reverse engineer your offense through that lens. How do we create it? Why am I running this action? Why am I doing this? And not just adding things just to add things. I think as a coach, it makes your process way more efficient. So I don't know if I would say revolutionary, but optimizing what you're already doing by reverse engineering your offense, I think is extremely beneficial to anybody coaching at any level, right? Really digging into why. It gives you a deeper understanding of what you're doing and for what reason you're doing it.
Yeah, and to get into kind of more specifics here, we're going to talk about the offense philosophy overall. We're going to talk about the flow series in depth. But I think that Coach Iisalo's system, and I don't know that this is how he would describe it, but from watching his teams play, these are the things that I see. And there's kind of 6 things that really stand out to me. And I think this is important kind of to give coaches like the 300,000 foot view of the philosophy before we zoom in. But I think, some of these pieces here that we're looking at on the screen right now is playing with pace, playing with a primary break, trying to score before the defense gets back. And if the defense does get back, we're flowing that into usually a ball screen foundational offense, a spread ball screen foundational offense, which is largely conceptual, where we have these different screens that we're going to use. We have some structure to play with, but really we're using that structure to get into our principles of spacing and creating advantages and making decisions and how we move the ball and how we rotate when the ball penetrates and things like that. I think this system that we're looking at, it thrives on this advantage creation. We're not trying to run plays. We're trying to hunt advantages, and then we're trying to make decisions behind those advantages that we create. The string principle and wheel penetration reaction basically is, when the ball starts to penetrate and we have a small advantage, how are the other players going to move in a coordinated fashion to help our offense? And I think the final piece is this tag up system, which is both kind of a transition defense and also an offensive rebounding philosophy that Coach Iisalo is married to. So I would like to kind of go through each of these one by one and just kind of unpack them just a little bit, just to give this kind of bigger overview. And Adam, I'm going to start with you talking about the pace of play and their primary break. How important do you think it is for the Grizzlies and for Coach Iisalo to try to score before the defense is set up, before this half-court offense system even takes place? Is that priority number one in this system, is to get it and go and try to find the right shot before the defense can get back?
Yeah, so 2 things really stand out here. First is when you think of Iisalo as the coach and what he wants to do with his program, and you think of maybe like a political party, you say, what's their northern star? What's the one thing they can point to every day that they go in? And that's what they look for. That's what they look to. Like with Coach Josh Shirts, for example, it's Kaizen. That's the first time I've ever really heard the idea of like a northern star. With Coach Iisalo, his idea is really speed kills. And it's not just playing faster than the other team, it's also processing what's happening faster than the other team. So the second part would be 3 seconds to the 3-point line. After the ball goes up, while it's already in the air and you secured the rebound, you have 3 seconds as an off-ball player to get to the 3-point line. And that's so you can set up either in transition or you can take an early advantage. One of his early offenses ideas is like cross-match post-ups. But yeah, if they could score within the first 3 seconds before the defense is back, they would do that every time.
So that's taking the 7 seconds or less idea and kind of putting it on steroids. And we're cutting that time in half, where we're trying to find our shot as early in possession as possible. And as long as it's a good shot, I don't think Coach Iisalo wants them just to speed up the court and jack anything up. All these principles still are the foundation of trying to find quality offense. And if it happens early in a possession, that's fantastic as well. But Kevin, I'm coming to you because I think the second part of how I see this is this spread ball screen as a foundational piece of the offense to create advantages. And in the next segment of this, we're going to let you do kind of a deeper dive on this flow offense system, but kind of explain to the audience what is a spread ball screen and why is it perfect for advantage creation.
And a spread ball screen really is just a spacing template for a general ball screen. We're going to talk about 3 different types of these ball screens when we get into it. We're going to talk about top ball screen. We're going to talk about spread ball screen. We're going to talk about wing ball screen. But really, it's foundational in the sense that it aligns with these transition lanes. And Adam's going to talk to you about that in a little bit, where we can flow directly into the offense. So spread, we are going at a 2-side. And so as we come off of that 2-side, we're putting, or come off of the screen towards the 2-side, we're going to put that defense in a bind with our help gap defenders on what they're going to do. We can move the ball and swing it twice and get into what we call flow. But a lot of it is really just reading, can we create an advantage early, right? Speed kills allows us to create advantages. That's why that is pushed so heavily in Iisalo's system. Can we get out in transition to create an advantage? Can we get a cross match post up, which is an advantage? And so we're trying to create early advantage with our spread ball screen and getting into that action as early as possible so that defenses aren't set up, their coverage isn't being communicated properly. It really allows the offense to create that advantage as early as possible in the possession. And then that leads to all these downstream effects of what we'll get into when we talk about the flow offense as a series in general.
Yeah, so the spread ball screen, a lot of coaches have found this to be kind of the optimal spacing around a pick and roll. And sometimes it can be a pick and pop, but basically we've got shooters spread around the court. There's tends to be 2 shooters on one side and 1 shooter on the other side. We've got a ball screen happening typically towards in the slot area of the court. We've got a screen and roll action where we can roll to the rim and with that gravity create a lot of pressure on the rim. And that creates a lot of this spacing where the ball handler can make reads on, depending on how the defense is covering the pick and roll, they can spray out to shooters, they can score for themselves, or they can use the roll man as a scorer. And it gets complex with the amount of options that there are. But this is a kind of a simple template. And I would say that, the James Harden Houston Rockets, I think, really brought it to light where they used this a ton. And that was basically a lot of their offense was basically putting James Harden in a ball screen and roll with a hard rolling center with all kinds of shooting around that and what can take place. That was the Houston Rockets offense for the most part under, Mike D'Antoni when he was doing that stuff and how James Harden was winning MVPs and scoring titles. But I think the next piece of this, what I would consider, the conceptual offense piece is, we're trying to get into these actions so that we can play off of our principles. And my question to you, Adam, would be, where does the primary break end? And when does the conceptual kind of offense begin where we're more working towards creating an advantage and then playing off these principles as opposed to running a play?
Yeah, so I'll add 2 rules to the spread pick and roll. The first rule is 1 cannot guard 2. So 1 defender cannot guard 2 players. And the other part is, this is the way I remember it, is spread, single lift. So same as like a shake pick and roll. So really it starts in a 5-man break and in transition. You're going to have the only person who really matters here is like the point guard going towards the 2-side, and then the center who's trailing behind the play and is going to start in the spread spacing. It's kind of like a drag ball screen. So it goes towards 2. And really it's a 2-man screening action, but it's a 5-man offensive action. So that's That's one of the biggest teaching points is there's no more 2-man actions in basketball. Everything is a 5-man action. And when you involve the defense, everything is a 10-man action. Once they cross about half court, that's when they will start into the spread ball screen. And you're getting the first rule, one cannot guard two. That can maybe be if there is gap help. That's when you get ideas like, I call them Memphis cuts, but you can also call them drift cuts. So something we've seen over the past couple of years has been, I call them string principles. You'll also hear it described as like the wheel, which is what JJ Redick called it, and that really popularized it. And the idea is you're leaving your gap defender and you're cutting with the pick and roll ball handler. And so that gap defender can no longer guard two players. He cannot stunt in the gap lane and drive back to his man because you've made it an impossible closeout by cutting from the wing to the corner, and that corner man on the two side cutting from the corner through the baseline. So that's really like one of the first principles. So it starts right away as soon as you get into spread spacing. If there is no gap defender, you can just play with normal spread spacing with the single lift. And the single lift is really to take away the tag of the pick and roll. Like you said, create the rim pressure. But you want to remove, if the defense is tagging, you want to remove the ability to help back out. That's what I was talking about a little earlier with Kawhi Leonard. You are cutting behind the basketball, filling behind. And so your defender cannot tag the pick and roll and then close out back to you. It makes it an impossible decision. So that's really like the start of the spread principles.
Yeah, so we're kind of hammering through some of this philosophy. And I think the next thing that I would want to talk about is this idea of advantage creation and decision making being kind of the central philosophy of the offense. And this is how modern offenses work, where a lot of the old school offenses where we're going to run a scripted play and we're going to screen for a certain player. They're going to come to this area of the court. We're going to throw them the ball and we're going to shoot the 15-foot jump shot based on how the play was designed. And how modern offense is changing is we're trying to advance the ball with pace. We're trying to get into an action early. We're trying to create an advantage early in the possession. And once we create an advantage, then we're into the decision-making territory. And if the defense neutralizes an advantage that we create, we're going to keep trying to flow into the next action to try to create more advantages and more opportunities to make decisions. A lot of times when basketball was played 20, 30 years ago, we're running a scripted set play. If that doesn't work, we're trying to set it up or we're trying to just isolate with our best player. That's really not where offense is going. Coaches are figuring out it's all about being able to flow into the next action to create an advantage and then make the decisions from there based on reading the defense. So between the two of you, I'd really like to kind of understand the thought process of what exactly is an advantage. An advantage, in my opinion, can be a variety of different things. It could be the mismatch that you'd mentioned, Kevin, earlier on. It can be, space towards the basket, an opening to take an advantage of. But what would you guys kind of qualify as the advantage that we're trying to create in this offensive system?
Yeah, I can start quickly. 3 different advantages. First one, qualitative advantage. So if there's a switch and you're a point guard on a center defending and you're on the perimeter, that's a quality advantage for the offense. You can take him. If the point guard switched onto the center, you can put in the post, qualitative advantage for the center. So really, you're looking for that's more of a positional advantage. Qualitative is maybe more, it's like a 2-3 guard to guard ball screen, and the 3 is the worst defender on their team. So you are putting the 3 in the action as the worst positional player. That's a quality advantage. Positional is more of, like I said, either the post up or the 1-5 ISO. And then the third one I'll talk about is the quantitative advantage. If you have, and this, I just kind of talked about this with the spacing principles, don't let one guard two. If your defender is helping and there's now 3 defenders guarding the pick and roll, there is the roll man, the roll man defender or the screen defender, the ball handler defender, and then the help defender. You have a numerical or quantitative advantage because now you are playing below the level of the screen, 3-on-2 in defense. Take like another example is like a hedge ball screen in a double drag. Same idea. You have 3 defenders in the action, but one of the offensive players rolled. You have a 3-on-2 advantage. So that's really the quantitative advantage we're talking about. Doesn't always have to be a specific at level, above level drop beater, but the idea is that you are creating 2-on-1s, 3-on-2s, 4-on-3s. Those are things. Best is obviously 1-on-0, but that's more of a transition idea.
Yeah, and I think
coaches
I
have
would
found.
refer.
Go ahead, Coach.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just saying, I think like when I talk about that coach speak to my players, a lot of it is just a numbers advantage. Can we create that numbers advantage on the break, in our actions, whatever we're running? But like Adam said, when you run these specific triggers and actions that are designed to create these advantages, it makes it really difficult. And when defenses are trying to guard ball screens, a lot of the focus is, can we guard it with 2 instead of 3? Can we fight over a screen to the point where we don't have to have, somebody tagging in on a roll? Coach, you talked about James Harden earlier on, and defenses have to deal with, we have Harden coming off a screen, Clint Capella rolling, and we got a shooter shaking behind. If we can't guard that, Capella Harden ball screen with 2 defenders, now we have to tag, now we have the shake, and there's the advantage that Adam was talking about. And you create those through your triggers and your actions and your pace and how quick you can get into them can really take that from a small advantage to a large advantage where, now you're creating these, 60% efficiency shots at a regular clip.
Yeah, so I think coaches have found that a ball screen is one of the easier ways to create an advantage. And all you're trying to do is figure out how the defense is going to cover it, how you can exploit it. And, back in the day, we're going to walk the ball up the court. We're going to run through a flowy pattern to get into our offense. That's not the case in modern offense. It's rush the ball up the court, get into the quickest and easiest way to try to create an advantage and try to play from there. So we're continuing to hammer through this offensive philosophy. I know Adam had touched on it a little bit earlier, but this wheel principle is a penetration reaction principle where, based on when the ball starts to attack the advantage, how are we going to move off the ball to continue to stress the defense? And when we talked about James Harden's crew, they didn't do a lot of movement off the ball. They basically camped in their spots and waited for catch and shoot shots. And they made you kind of decide if you were going to help off, they were ready to shoot, but they weren't doing all kinds of movement around the ball screen other than the roller rolling to the hoop and a shake behind the ball. But this is a system that's going to challenge the defense, where the picture is going to change. Once the penetration starts to happen, the picture is going to change. And if you get caught ball watching, your player is going to cut from behind, and there's going to be a new kind of spacing around the ball where you've really got to keep your eye on not only the ball and your player, but everything that's happening. Is there any follow-up from either of you just on this penetration reaction principle of moving along this wheel pattern?
I'll say, the idea is the wheel because you're following the pick and roll ball handler. Same when I said string principles, like if you're stringing a circle, you're really following the pick and roll ball handler. And the whole idea is do not let one guard two.
Yeah, so and when I would teach this to my players, we would be talking about like a push-pull type of system, where when you start to penetrate, that penetration is kind of pushing you, and if you're behind the ball, you're going to kind of pull into the tail lights of the ball, and it's really just to stress the spacing to the maximum degree. The last part of this that I wanted to touch on is the idea of tagging up. Adam, I think you have a clip that will demonstrate what tagging up kind of looks like. But this has become a very popular philosophy in coaching, not just with Coach Iisalo, but it kind of came from European basketball, I believe. And a lot of coaches are using this tag up because it addresses offensive rebounding, and it also addresses transition defense at the same time. So we'll roll this clip and kind of, Adam, maybe talk through exactly what we're looking at here on this clip.
Yeah, this the idea of tagging up came from Coach Ferns, who was most recently the head coach at Charlotte in D1. So the idea here, the entry into the pick and roll doesn't matter. It's when the ball goes up, you have to tag the high side of your defender. So we'll see the ball go up right here, and you'll see four players crashing the glass, and they're all supposed to tag the high side of their defender. Now, tagging up it is partially an offensive rebounding system, but the idea is you can still rebound and get back in transition. That's why instead of crashing the glass for like maybe a 51-49 advantage, you're tagging the high side of your defender and creating 50-50 scenarios for the pick or for the offensive rebound. You're not just going to crash the glass, you're going to rebound and you're still in position to tag back. One thing this clip didn't 100% show was if the 3-point is a miss and the defense gets the ball, and now your opponent is now coming back in fast break, you press up on them. So after they get the rebound, you are already tagged to their body, and you'd be a little pest. Jose Alvarado is like a very good example of this, of like pestering the whole floor. Houston Cougars are another good example of like ball pressure for 98 feet. And that's really the idea behind tagging up. Coach Ferns originated it. Coach Iisalo uses it. I know the Knicks used it last year and this year. I know Michigan, the champs for D1, used it this year. Countless other examples in NBA, college basketball, but really it's more of a transition defensive system than it is an offensive rebounding system.
So on the flight of the shot, we're working to get to the backs of the player that we are matched up with. And that gives us an opportunity to make some reads, whether if there's an advantageous bounce for us, we can go grab the ball. But if the defensive team gets the rebound, we're automatically matched up to a player. So we don't have to worry about sprinting back first and then matching up to a player. We're already matched up. And we can also, just like you said, we can start pressuring the ball right away, which will help us slow down those outlet passes. And if we're matched up to a player that's going to receive an outlet pass, we already have a little bit of pressure on them in the first place where it's not an easy outlet pass. So you're really trying to slow teams down in your transition. And this is, like Adam said, it is more of a transition defense strategy, but it's really a hybrid strategy of offensive rebounding combined with transition defense. So from here, Coach, we'll pivot into the flow series. So what I'd like to do is, Kevin Schott, I would like to hear from you, and I would like to talk about the details of the flow series. So I'm looking for the video from you. I'm going to throw that up on the screen. And before we get started with that, Adam, can you explain to me just this flow series that we're going to look at? Talk to me about how big of a piece of that is this Iisalo system, and maybe touch on some of the things that might live outside of this flow series where, we've got an Iverson set play series, we've got X, Y, and Z. So just touch on that a little bit while we get the film set up.
Yeah, the flow series is it's three different ball screen. It doesn't always have to be three, but it's three different ball screen spacing, spread, wing, top. And they use it about 8 times per possession from my tracking, or sorry, 8 times per game from my tracking last year. And it is a big part of their offense. Obviously, they use it 8 times per game, but the idea is more the 3 different spacings they use, the 3 different pick and roll spacings. Those are more the ideas because the entire offense is built around 3 pick and roll spacings, and flow is just combining them and attacking at different angles, like I made the analogy earlier with Jurassic Park.
Yeah, so like when we see, we talk about that Iverson series, they'll run a set play in the half court where they're going to make these Iverson cuts, and that naturally flows into the same kind of spread ball screen spacings. So as opposed to thinking of everything as the flow series, we're really using these principles to get to our spacing template to attack. So, Coach, I've got the flow series queued up here, and I'm going to cue it to you to talk us through what we're seeing here.
Perfect. So we talked about this and Adam mentioned it. We're coming off this spread ball screen, and you can tell it's spread because we're going at the 2 side. Adam mentioned, like, if you want to think of it as spread because we have a single lift here over on this side, that works perfectly well. But all of these principles that we've already talked about tie into this. So this is spread. Like if Edie were to try and flip this, like I have telestrated, now we're into top ball screen. And eventually we get into that. It's just two different ways of trying to exploit an advantage. So as we come off the ball screen, we realize that we probably don't create a ton of an advantage or one that we're happy with because of how high the screen was actually set. So right away, we're moving this ball and we're going to move it to the wing and then immediately one way or another exchange here. Typically, we would see a wing ball screen. Here, we're actually just going to get a DHO. But flow is really the combination of all of these actions. So here we get a DHO, but other times we'll see just a wing ball screen here. And then the final part of this is this top ball screen. So it gets moved back because, again, we don't create an advantage we like. And now as we come off of this, we're in our top ball screen spacing where we're going away from the two side. Again, Adam mentioned if you just want to think top because we have a two lift, that's a great way to remember it as well. But now we are going at our one side, and it puts a lot of stress, in this case it's Harrison Barnes, on what he needs to do. Again, one can't guard two here. If he steps in, and people talk about helping from the strong side corner all the time, you have that kick out three, and you're hopefully getting it with this no contest concept. So we don't really actually get what Iisalo would most likely consider a 60% shot out of this. But as it shows up on the screen here, we've gotten to three different sides of the floor, right? So when we start our ball screen and spread, we're on the first side. We get it over to the second side when we go over, and now we come back and we're on a third side. And ball reversals, while they're not the be-all, end-all, are a huge indicator of points per possession. And we get to a shot that we make. It's probably not a shot that we're in love with, though, as we move forward in this video. And so as we get into our next clip, again, we're hunting as we come off of, and let me reverse it so that we can see our spread. Again, we see the spread because we're going at the two side. As we come off, again, not super happy with the advantage, and it's a move. Now as we go in and we're going to move this ball, we can see, and we talked about this earlier, this is the defender that we're trying to pick on here, right? Is he going to tag as this roll, or are we going to get a tag here? A lot of teams will call this the most important guy, and that will show up. But as we swing and swing again, we're forcing this long closeout. So again, when we talked about two-way motion, we're hoping that he is sliding in as this ball is moving out. And again, most teams call this the most important guy when we're dealing with any kind of roll or tag. So now he has to close out as this moves. And again, we're going to talk about 0.5 decision making in a second. We've made a decision here as the ball is being moved from the slot to the corner. He's reading the closeout as the ball is in flight. And so now he's able to attack downhill. And again, now we've drawn two to the ball. We could hit the tee up. We could slide down and try to hit this corner three because we're trying to get into the headlights here. We end up taking a relatively difficult shot. But again, it's about creating those advantages. And a lot of it comes from the pace of the action. A lot of people think pace is just sprint up the floor and shoot it as fast as you can. But a lot of times pace, especially in this offense and in flow series, is how efficiently and how fast we're actually able to get from one action to the next. So as we rewind this clip, what you're going to see is it's not necessarily about how quick we got up the floor. We don't have a numbers advantage. This is a 5-on-5. We're not in some huge 5-on-4 or 5-on-3, 4-on-3. It's really about we get into this spread ball screen and we really don't even get into it. But as Aldama catches the ball, he's pretty much already moving it. And again, 0.5 decision making. We'll talk about it more later, but it's so vital to how this offense works and making it work efficiently. Because now as the ball gets moved and we sprint into this wing ball screen here, we haven't had time as a defense to communicate what coverage we're in. We're really still getting back in this is, secondary break principles here. We haven't had time to communicate it. We get kind of the late point switch of, oh, we're going to switch this because I don't know what coverage we're actually supposed to be in. And so it leads to a slip. And again, it's wide open. We got into it so fast that Brunson really didn't even have time to start to move over and slide over into a help or tag position where he probably should be, because the ball got from, the left slot all the way down, and now we're throwing it in on a slip so quick. Brunson's not there to help. And even if he is, now we're getting that kick out and we're getting the 60% shots that we're looking for here. But because we operate so quickly is really why we're actually able to create that advantage. And so pace doesn't always have to mean, just sprinting up and shooting a shot right away. It can also just be how fast we get into the actions that we like. So again, we're in spread ball screen. Going at a 2-side, we have a single lift. Move, and instead, and this is why I really love flow, it can just be a concept and a spacing template more so than extremely, extremely rigid. So right here, Jaren is actually in the corner instead of where we would normally have him up top, and these two would be flipped. So instead of, having to follow a dead set play, we like Jaren setting this screen instead of being the one to get the invert and get, be the ball handler here. So instead, we kind of set this angle pick and roll, and it throws the defense off because maybe they're not ready for that. They're ready for swing into the wing pick and roll. But instead, now we have Jaren setting this screen. And it's why I think it's so usable in lower levels, high school, college, because it can be tough to scout. It's not necessarily we're going to run the exact same action every time. We're getting our screen on the second side. And we can still, even if we don't like what we get here from Jaren rolling, move it back to a third side. But again, now, and Adam will mention this later, I'm sure, you can see we start kind of at the break here on the weak side. And as the roll gets thrown, we're going to slide down into the corner to be in the line of sight. But we have options now. Jaren's double teamed and 2 are on the ball. We can throw the tee up to Edie. We can get it to the corner. And again, that is a 60% shot. That's a shot that you live with. And you take that every time that you can get it. So now going into flow, we see it again. And as this ball screen is being set, slide, it moves over. We get to a corner. Sometimes all you need is a switch, right? We talked about a positional advantage or a qualitative advantage. Steph Curry's not known as being a great defender. He has to make this long closeout. Because of how quick Aldama is able to move the ball. Now he's closing out, kind of that two-way motion principle. We don't have time to set up a coverage that we're more comfortable with. And now we have a switch where we have our 4 being guarded by, their offensive-minded point guard. And so again, maybe this isn't the, numerical advantage that looks really nice, but we have a post up on a mismatch now. And because of that, when we look into the post, they double. And now you've drawn 2 to the ball. Now you're playing with an advantage somewhere else on the floor. And so now, as Jimmy starts to turn his head, we get a cut from the baseline, kind of following along with some of those string principles, and we get fouled and we're going to the line. And again, another great thing that I love about flow and why I think it's so adaptable for lower level offenses is that it doesn't have to start from a spread ball screen every time. Maybe we run the floor and we're uneven and we just get directly into this wing ball screen or a wing entry into flow as opposed to the spread ball screen. So now instead of going into spread, they recognize early that instead of having the spacing that we normally like, we're just going to get into wing. And now as it moves back to the top of the floor here, once we set our wing ball screen, we can move it back and then get into what we like. And again, now this looks like the flow that we're used to seeing. We move it back to the top. Now we get into this top ball screen. And again, the pace at which we can move the ball and force the defense to react allows the short roll. Adam talked about Memphis cuts. We don't get one here. But this short roll opens up a ton because he has to help on the short roll. And so if we get a burn cut from the corner, we get the drift cut from Jaren. Again, you're punishing the idea of not allowing one to guard two. And so here we get the layup because this is going to be really late, but we'll see drift cuts and Memphis cuts in some later film cut-ups where just getting to that short roll can open up a ton of offense too. And again, the pace at which we can flow between these actions, and it's why it's called flow series, is really, really great. And again, this last clip here that I'll show, we get back to a third side, but because the Spurs are ready for what's going to happen, you don't have to, you're not bound to a strict set of rules when it comes to the flow series. So we get the move, we go to the wing, down to the corner, our wing ball screen, and we don't love what we get out of it. But Carter Bryant here has most likely seen what they're doing. If they do this 8 times a game, you've probably seen them go wing ball screen and move it back up to the top and get into top ball screen. And so these really good defensive teams like the Spurs, like the Thunder, are going to try to jump this pass and get out in transition and go the other way. So instead of throwing what is a really dangerous pass, if this gets picked and it's a live ball turnover, Carter Bryant on Cam Spencer is not an ideal matchup for the Grizzlies in transition. Instead of doing that, we don't have to. There are other ways to get to the top ball screen spacing, even if it's not directly top ball screen. So instead of that, we're just going to throw it to the big at the elbow and get into more of a blind pig action here. But really, we're creating the same look. When this ball gets pitched to Cam Spencer, really, this is just a top ball screen with a slip anyways. But because we were so heavily invested on trying to get into the passing lane and get a hand on a pass, now we're not in position to call out our ball screen coverage. Now we have to show 2 to the ball. We have our slip here. And it's going to lead to a great pass from Cam Spencer. And again, if we wanted to, we could throw it in here, throw it out to the corner, because now we have that, the two-way motion that we're looking for. We've got 2 guys collapsing in on the ball, and we end up getting a layup, but that creates, a million different high percentage shots that we're looking for. 2 guys collapsing on a roller. You've got two-way motion really going both ways there if you want, as long as you can complete that pass. And those are really the basics of flow series. But flow series can be as much or as little as you want it to be. It can be a very strict set play, or you can really open it up into this whole conceptual, just template for you to be creative with. Maybe we set a flare instead of throwing it back and getting into top ball screen coverage on the third side. And it's really all about the defense is never right. However they're going to cover those 3 actions has to be wrong. You hear coaches, not just Coach Iisalo, Nate Oates at Alabama, I've heard talk about all the time, the defense is always wrong. And so it gives you, something that you can implement with your players that is somewhat simple to understand and conceptualize, but is a great way to teach conceptual offense and reads and how to create advantage and how to keep advantage, take small advantage to big advantage.
Yeah, that was a wonderful breakdown. Really good stuff, Coach. I really love jamming those 3 actions into such a compact time frame there. In the NBA with a 24-second clock, you got to get to it. And these guys definitely get to it with this flow offense, creating different opportunities. And what I really found interesting listening to you break it down is, I understood the spread ball screen element, but really looking at that reverse action, it really reminded me a lot of Euro ball screen offense, where you're reversing the ball, you're playing a 2-man game where you could pass and follow, you could take it over on a dribble handoff, even some like 21 series kind of influence where, like you showed with the step up ball screen on that sideline, that reminds me a lot of kind of Pistols and 21 series. So you've got all these kind of fun actions that can create advantages stacked on top of one another that you can get to really quick. Adam, I'd be interested if you had any follow-up thoughts on the flow series, but more so, I'm really interested to hear from you. Why is this not something Ja Morant can be successful with? This thing that would be tailor-made for his skill set Is it just that he prefers to play in isolation rather than with so much ball screen? But I'll flip it to you. Thoughts on this flow and thoughts on Ja Morant specifically in this system, why that wouldn't work?
Yeah, I'm gonna hold off on the second part because I got a relationship and I don't want to talk about that part. The first part, I'll just like touch on something you saw, like the step up ball screen on the wing side. That's a coverage solution. So you notice the Pelicans are switching there. So the idea is usually you always have the same 5 lanes filled. So you have the 4 filling the wing lane and the 2 filling the corner lane. But this time, when you're in transition, you're flipping them. The 4 is filling the lane, and like you said, you have those positions flipped. Now it's a coverage solution because they're switching, and this is like a really specific teaching point to Coach Iisalo's offense. Jaren goes up, sets the screen, and reverse pivots out. So you lots of times you get like a front pivot, especially out of something like a spread ball screen, which is you're pivoting your body away from the ball screen to the front, and the ball handler is coming off. But in this one, your eyes are never leaving the ball handler's eyes. You're doing the reverse pivot, they're switching. You have an advantage where you are past the 2 defenders, and now it's like a 4-on-3 is the idea. And Jaren didn't get to the rim there because help came. But really, it's like a coverage solution for every single thing. Same, the difference between spread and top. Spread, you're attacking on the first side. Top, you're attacking on the third side. But you've already tried spread the first time, even though you're attacking from the same pick and roll position. You flip the screen because it's a new coverage solution. So those are 2 things I would really touch on. Just like specific to Ja, I know the pick and roll numbers haven't been excellent since he's been in the league, but really you're looking at like TJ Shorts type point guards in Euro League or Euro Cup really succeeded in this offense. Specific to Euro League, I know he switched teams and he hasn't had as much success outside, but it's really tailored design for like those small pick and roll point guard aficionados.
Yeah, so I wanted to kind of pivot into the concepts behind the concepts of this offense. And I think the first thing that I'd want to talk with you about, Adam, is this string principles. So if we can load up a video of string principles, I think that would be helpful visual for the audience. But if you could just kind of give us a brief explanation of string principles. I know we've talked about it a little bit already. And really what the problem that we're trying to solve with the string principles. I think I got the right clip here, Coach.
Yeah, that's perfect. So the string principles, there's a bunch of different examples clipped in here together, but I will get to them individually. The idea again is 1 cannot guard 2. So the gap help defender is a big point of emphasis, and then the tag is a big point of emphasis. So pick and roll these days is a 5-man action because defenders are becoming better, and offensive players are also becoming better. You know, we have bigs that can handle and drive, you have wings that can handle and drive, you have point guards that can handle and drive. And cognition is improved in players across all levels, especially when you're talking about like teaching conceptual drills. You're drilling in the cognition in through the small-sided games. So the first example I have here was the spread pick and roll. So spread again, single lift, you're going toward 2. The Memphis cuts are the 2 and 4 on the 2-side position. And though their defender, the gap defender, cannot guard both the ball handler and his man on the wing. So when you are cutting, you are doing that to create a little advantage where he has to do an impossible closeout to the corner. If that's not happening, you don't have to do the Memphis cuts. You can just run it with the single lift. And like the single lift, like I said before, is to disrupt the tag. You can get spread pick and pop. That was the third clip I had in here. And spread pick and pop does not require an accompanying like cut because the spacing is still good. You as the ball handler are going towards the 2 side, the roll man or the pop man in this case is popping out into the single occupied side. So you still have the 4 out spacing on the perimeter, 5 with you, and then you can drive and there's no clogged paint. Now that's the idea of the string principles specific to spread pick and roll. String principles specific to top pick and roll is you going towards the single side is the pick and roll ball handler and 2 lifts behind, top 2. So we've seen like the Grizzlies the last 2 years, they've used Noah LaRoche's system or a version of it, I'll say, and then Coach Tuomas Iisalo's system. With LaRoche, the wheel like really became popular where everyone is following each other. Everyone's following the ball handler and making the accompanying cuts. But in top spacing, when you're going towards the single side offensive player does not cut. So let's just call him a 3 or a small forward in this case because the flow offense, the second side's a 2 and a 4. The 3 does not cut because he would be cutting into your paint. So that's really the different idea with the wing or the wheel or the string is you get the 2 lifts, but you do not get the accompanying cut because it would cut right into your space. Now on top pick and pop, which just happened on the screen, you are getting the roll man is popping into the 2 side. So you need an accompanying cut because otherwise the spacing principles are out of line. You have 3 players all within, let's say, arm's reach. And what happens here is that the wing is supposed to cut through and you can set up a whole bunch of different ideas through that. Like if it's a next ball screen, next ball screen coverage, we know you can pass to the pop man and he will throw it because his man is coming to defend you while you've already 45 cutted. So those are the 2 main ones. Yeah.
Do they ever, and this is a question just from me, is the 45 cut really what he preaches when it comes to that top pick and pop? Or do they ever like Memphis cut on the top pick and pop just to try to get, that spacing back to normal? Or is it almost always going to be that wing, 45 cutting through on that pick and pop?
You're going to get the 45 cut because there's other principles that come into play like the drive pass. And you're not going to be cutting at the same time as the second pass is happening. Also because if the pop man is open, we call it the read pop option, roll pop. Is he supposed to roll to the basket or is he popping? He's popping if he has an advantage. And he can drive, and then he'd be driving into the same lane as the cut. But really his first option is to always shoot. So it's always the 45 cut.
Got it. Thank you.
So those are like the string principles for spread and top. Very easy to see. When we get into wing, we say usually it's the 2 and the 4, but it can also be the 1 and the 5, an empty pick and roll, and then the 3 other players outside the 3-point line. Now usually you get you can call it like a 3-side dive is what I usually call it. So when you're driving to the basket, you can either get a cut from someone on the 3 side. And the other idea is when you are in wing spacing, you can still get to your flow offense with a spread ball screen. And it's it's kind of the same idea as like the 3-side dive I just said, but instead the wing is cutting all the way through, more like a through cut to the opposite corner. And that gets you back in spread spacing. So those are really like the main ideas for the string principles. Do you want me to get in like more into the specifics of what happens after the initial trigger?
No, I think that was a great explanation.
Okay.
What I'd really like to hear more about, what I'm really interested in, is the conversation about 2-way motion. And I'd look for a clip from you on that. And I think the string principles were something that I was generally aware of. I think reading your article, it made that really click home with the terminology and the explanation that you provided. Kevin, did you think Adam's article helped you understand string principles better?
I can't even begin to describe how much Adam's article is helpful in just trying to understand the concepts of this offense in general. And I think 2-way motion, the way that Adam puts it in the article, is really just a great way to, wrap all the things that we kind of see as coaches and put them into writing, where it's like you want someone closing out at you as you're going by, or going the wrong way as you're throwing a skip pass or whatever it may be. And so like 2-way motion, I think for a lot of coaches is, somewhat innate, but seeing it really put into writing, I think really helps, as a coach trying to, how can I generate 2-way motion as opposed to just oh, this is something that is happening, in live play. What are ways I can go about generating it? Because Adam did such a great job of, actually writing it and putting it into words of what specific advantage you're trying to create with that two-way motion.
Yeah. So Adam, why don't you take us through this clip? Walk us through what we're watching.
Yeah, so I picked this clip again because you get a incredibly strong defender, 99th percentile defender in the NBA, OG Anunoby. This is the entry point is like wide action rejected into stack pick and roll. That part's not very important. The important part is you're still getting the ball screen and you're getting the roll from Jock Landale here. This is the game opening ATO. There's the roll, there's the tag from OG, and when OG is tagging, the ball is already going to going from Jaw to Jaren. If OG had already tagged and he was still able to close out to Jaren, there's no motion. That's not two-way motion because you really want the defender and the ball going in opposite directions. And that pairs very nicely with like the lift idea, with the single side lift or the double side lift, because your defender, if he's tagging out to the pick and roll, he can't close out back to the corner or the wing because you've already relocated positions. So the two ideas really pair together. And when we talk about spacing principles, they get very, very specific. There's like stuff for the bigs to do. There's stuff after the pass. There's stuff on baseline drives, but we'll just skip those for now. But the two-way motion is really a core idea. It's the defense that creates the two-way motion because it's based off their principles of, you can either do like maybe have a weak side eye where the wing is responsible for part of the tag and then the corner is responsible for the other part of the tag. But it's up to you as the offense to identify that two-way motion and take advantage of it. But usually you get, like in the NBA, you get low man schemes. Grizzlies use a last plus X out. Last plus X out can kind of remove the two-way advantage because the last is coming to help or the low man is coming to help at the rim, and you're zoning up temporarily and then Xing out to the most difficult defender. But really, like a classic defensive system is you get the low man or the last, and then you're taking advantage of them closing back out. That's how the defense puts themselves in two-way motion, and you take advantage of it.
Yeah, you're giving us a real masterclass explanation of these concepts. We've covered the string principles. We've covered the two-way motion. And the next thing I think in terms of decision-making is this QB12. If you have a clip of QB12, I'd love to watch that, but I'd love for you to explain this concept and how coaches can identify it.
Yeah, so QB12 is something I am really stealing from Coach LaRoche and Coach Boylan. It's kind of like a cognition identifier. I'm going to put up this clip and I will explain it, but I will also explain what the clip is because I think it's important as well. Let me get it up. Oh, sorry, let me remove one and present another. So I'll explain the clip after, but we'll really get to the part where our QB12, I assume it's named after Tom Brady. I don't watch football though, so I'm not certain. But the idea is when multiple defenders are guarding one player, can you identify it and can you take advantage of it? So in this specific scenario, you have Jock Landale, Cam Spencer pick and roll, and it's like a similar idea as to the tag right here, where it gets reversed to the side. There is a high tag on Landale, so there are two players defending Landale at the same time. You, as the quarterback or the point guard, ball handler, have to identify where that open man is. Specific to this play, we get a stampede cut. So like you pair that QB12 that Cam Spencer identified with the airtime decision that KCP identified, go and catch, stampede cut, and 60 shot right there. I just want to briefly touch on this play too. So we talked about the flow series and the different sides of flow. This is Iverson wing top. Some people will call it Iverson follow empty, but you see Cam gets the ball. It's reversed after the Iverson cut. Wing pick and roll, no advantage, reversed back to the side into top pick and roll. So you are getting into flow, usually out of spread pick and roll, but any trigger you see in the Grizzlies offense is just getting right back into the exact same three spaces. Whether it's like a 4-2 pin down, no advantage, you're getting back into the exact same spaces. Iverson follow empty right there, no advantage, you're getting back into the same spacing ideas. And really, it's every single play in their playbook is the exact same idea. You're just getting into three spaces after the initial trigger.
Yeah,
But specific to the QB12, yes, you're really identifying either if I have two defenders on me, where do I move the ball? Or if the roll man has two defenders on him, where do I move the ball? You got to find the open man.
So high school basketball terms, this becomes more simple where, if you start to drive and you beat your guy, you're reading, who helped and where did they come from? If it's chest help, you're going to move the ball quickly. And if it's maybe just an arm in the way of your drive, that at that point you're making a decision whether you kick it or try to drive through it. When we get into this NBA setting, it gets a little bit more complicated on what those reads are and what the options are outside of where the ball is. But again, string principles, two-way motion, QB12. I think the last thing that we wanted to touch on here was airtime decision making. And if you have a clip of that, send that over, Adam. But Kevin, I wanted your kind of thoughts on this airtime decision making. What does it look like at your level when it's not executed properly? Airtime decision making.
When it's not executed properly, it's a catch and a hold and maybe a pump fake and a pass fake, and then we're back to neutral. We don't have an advantage anymore. And so a lot of the things that I'm thinking about are when I'm looking at this offense, what are the player traits that we need to develop in order for the offense to actually be successful? And so like none of this works if you don't have this airtime decision making. Like even something as simple as a stampede cut that we saw in the last clip. If you're not reading that decision in the air, you're just going to catch and look and then scan the floor and try to make a decision after you catch it. These elite processors, they're making their decision and they're seeing the floor and seeing the read that they need to make as the ball is in flight to them. And so I think as coaches, if we're going to preach these principles, then we need to, Adam mentioned small-sided games a little bit, these advantage games where they have to be able to read an advantage and keep it. And sometimes like learning to make a decision, especially in a practice setting, the wrong decision is better than no decision. Because eventually when you see a problem enough or you see a coverage enough, you can come up with a solution. And being able to make those decisions quicker is what makes individual players more flowy, as we've used that term a lot today. But it makes your offense more flowy when you have all five players. And Adam talked about, this is a 5-man. There aren't 2-man actions. It's a 5-man action. Being able to read things as they're happening and not have to catch the ball, square up, and then make a decision. Because the higher in level you get, your advantage is already gone.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. A lot of times it's a catch and a hold, a catch and an indecision. That decision needs to be made before the ball's in your hands. While the ball's in the air, you're deciding where the driving gap is. Do I have the shot? What the next action is? If you're going to run actions to create advantages, you've got to transfer that advantage, and then you've got to either keep the advantage, cash in on the advantage, or enlarge the advantage. You can't let the defense get back to neutral once you've put them in the blender. And this is, the conceptual element of this, where this philosophy behind the offense becomes the most important thing. That lends itself to decision making being the key part of the offense. Whereas coaches of the past, it's let's memorize all of these different sets. And not that NBA coaches don't have set plays, they certainly do, but let's memorize this patterned offense, and I need to be here and I need to be this. It's not that. It is create the advantage and then decide whether to cash in on the advantage and how you're going to attack that advantage when you receive it. But this is the dominoes concept of once the ball gets moving, once you've created the advantage, you got to know what to do with it. And the wrong thing is to catch it and hold it and get back to neutral. So airtime decision making, Adam, I think this may be my favorite concept, but if you can explain it in Coach Iisalo's terms the best you can, I think that would be great for the audience.
Yeah, this is more verbiage I stole from coaches LaRoche and Boylan, but the idea is you are making the decision in the air. You'll also hear closeout decision making. When the ball's coming to you and your defender's closing out, what's the decision you make? But I like airtime because you make the decision while the ball is already in the air. Now, like two of the things I really want to point out are the dominoes and neutral. If you're running a trigger for 8 seconds, in between getting back into the half court and running your trigger, and you're back in neutral after you create an advantage, your offense is dead. You got to restart. And yes, really, you're doing this so you can put the offense in or the defense in dominoes. Like you said, you make the right closeout decision. Maybe you don't get the shot, but maybe your teammate's open because someone rotated over to you. Uh, you're always looking for the catch and shoot 3-point shot in Coach Iisalo's offense on the airtime decision. Uh, but if that's not available, there's two teaching points here, and they both go together with the Memphis cut / lift idea. The first one is the stampede cut, where we saw with KCP. And the idea is you're already moving with the lift, and you catch the ball while you're on the go, and stampede cut, very popular in NBA. Giannis, Ben Simmons in the past, even stampede cuts often. Here you see it again. You're already moving, and when your defender tries to close out to you, you already have a head of steam. You're a train going to the basket. This is the second teaching point. This is not a go and catch. Sorry, the other one was a go and catch. This one is the catch and go. So you're catching the ball in the closeout, planting your feet, and you drive to the basket. Yeah, sorry for missing those up. But there's the stampede is the go and catch. That is the catch and go. You catch the ball in the air, land, and then you go with the cut. You got to dribble into it so you don't travel. But those are the two main teaching points for getting shots at the rim. But the advantage you're always looking for is the open catch and shoot 3-point attempt. You can see there, two-way motion was not created because the tag never came. It wasn't deep enough. So Smart never had to cut back to his man. So instead of really taking advantage of the open shot, you are taking advantage of the catch and go.
Yeah, so we've got these 4 principles that we've looked at in depth, and I wanted to ask just a couple follow-up questions about these kind of 4 principles. And the first one that I'd like to start out with you, Adam, which is, of these 4 principles, which one of these do you think improves the efficiency of an offense the best?
So there are between 90 and 100 closeouts a game. So to me, the airtime decision is really the most important because that's the most frequent. You'll get 40 pick and rolls per game too, but not every pick and roll is created equally. Not every closeout is created equally either, but there's always a solution to the closeout. So the 90 to 100 possessions a game, there's a closeout. Those are the most important to me.
Adam, are there certain things that Coach Iisalo is looking for in a closeout that he's teaching his players in practice? Like, all right, if we see a closeout that looks like this, we want to do A, or we always want to stampede cut on a lift, or we want to catch and go more so on a kick out from a drive rather than a lift. Like, what are the teaching points that he's teaching his players to develop that skill in reading closeouts, airtime decisions?
Yeah, so the catch and go and catch are like specific to every player. Some players have specific, just like the defense will treat different players differently. The offense also does. So you're really looking for the open catch and shoot 3-point attempt. But if you are ran off the line, the teaching point is to do the catch and go. If you have the open shot or a short closeout, you take the 3-point attempt. So those are really like very basic rules, but you can also tailor it to the different players in your offense. Players who can't shoot, but are good drivers, because if you can't shoot, better be a good athlete if you're going to stay on the floor. And then the players who are like very specific skill set is shooting.
Good stuff, guys. We've got these 4 principles: the airtime decision-making, QB12, two-way motion, string principles. Kevin, from a basketball perspective, a coaching perspective, which of these do you think is actually the hardest to teach?
I think each present their own challenge. And if we could go back, could you the 4 principles, could you run through them one more time just so that I can kind of go, one by one and explain what I think about each?
Yeah, we've got the string principles, two-way motion, QB12, and the airtime decision making.
I think players can recognize two-way motion innately. And I think just putting words to it is something that they can, it would make a lot of sense to them. I think too many players now, when we look at string principles, have been drilled to go to the ball. If the ball is being dribbled, we got to go to the ball, especially at a youth level. And so being able to, kind of uningrain that thought process of, we can actually drift away from the ball as the ball is being dribbled towards you instead of going to the ball and, now it's my turn to get the ball when you're really just jamming up driving lanes. But I think the thing that takes the most time is any of the decision-making aspects, whether it's QB12, whether it's, reading an airtime decision. That takes time and it takes failure. You have to mess up on that stuff before you can properly make those reads over and over again, especially at lower levels. And so being able to put your players in an environment where they feel comfortable making those mistakes and then being able to learn and grow from them, I think is so vital to that. Because as coaches, it's hard for us to want to promote mistakes because that's not what we want to see when we're playing. But if you don't, then you're never actually going to be able to unlock, the high level player that's inside of whatever player you have right now. And so being able to be comfortable with allowing your players to make mistakes, especially in practice, so that down the line, they're able to make those QB12 reads or those airtime decisions, I think is probably the most difficult on the coach and the player, is accepting that failure and then being able to teach but create the environment where everybody feels that they are getting better even through their mistakes.
Yeah, I think these are all topics that coaches should be talking about, even at the middle school level, certainly at the high school level. I think that airtime decision-making is crucial. I think the QB12 concept of how to, make decisions when you're reading, help defense is huge for these kind of lower levels of basketball. But I wanted to finish out our session today talking about kind of translating these concepts to the high school level. We've got NBA players playing on an NBA court with NBA spacing and NBA skills. And if not the whole system, parts and pieces of this definitely transfer to different levels, which we just touched on. We're going to finish with this kind of pyramid that I've put on the screen here, where we're talking about shot quality, advantage creation, spacing, and decision making. And I built this just trying to organize the things that we've discussed here today. I'd be interested in hearing from you guys if you had any thoughts, if you wanted to tear this apart, or what might be wrong with it in the sense of trying to teach these principles to youth basketball or high school basketball.
Yeah, definitely not my strength, but shot quality at the top. I know that like at the youth level, high school level, gold, silver, bronze are like 3 teaching points that you can do for each specific shot. So like Coach Iisalo has the exact same idea. It's just instead of asking for gold, silver, bronze, he's asking for the 60% shots.
Yeah, I've heard the terminology in a million different ways. Illinois, I know, uses gold, silver, bronze. I've heard 9, 7, and 5. But I think, however you want to stack this pyramid up, shot quality, I love the fact that it's in gold, but it could maybe even go at the bottom because it's really the foundation that you build everything else, on top of. Because if you're not hunting those shots and reverse engineering, then what really is the foundation of your offense? Because at the end of the day, we're trying to put the ball in the basket and have the most efficient offense that we can. And emphasizing shot selection and shot quality, I think is priority, 1 when we're talking about offense. And so I think all of the other things come downstream to that. Adam mentioned reverse engineering. How are we going to create the 60% shots, or if you're a gold medal shot coach, or if you're we want 9s and 7s coach. There's a lot of different ways to build that. And I think that that's what makes basketball and coaching so beautiful, is there's, a lot of different ways you can reach those outcomes. But I think you have to standardize in some form or fashion, the shot selection that you're going to emphasize as a program and how we're going to get to those shots. So I think first and foremost, shot selection and shot quality has to be a priority. And then how do we get there is everything else past that: advantage creation, spacing, what decisions we're going to make, to reach our final shot quality that we're happy with.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Adam.
and I would really have like maybe I don't really understand the pyramid, but like at the top, I would have decision making, because shot quality is a part of decision making. You take the shots you think you can make. Athleticism, basketball is only going to take you so far, but feel is really going to take you to the next level. We see the best players in the world, um, like Wemby, SGA, and then Jokic in particular. He doesn't necessarily have the athleticism, but he is the best feel in the world. So for me, decision making and all the others really go together, but decision making and shot quality specifically. But I would have that as like that's the gold star you're looking for. North star you're looking for is decision making in the offense.
Yeah, Adam, high school coaches are probably connected up to Huddle. They have stats that they can sift through. They might not quite understand how to interpret those stats, but besides like an effective field goal percentage or points per possession, what could coaches start measuring tomorrow that might lead them more towards this philosophy of playing basketball? I know you'd mentioned kind of the true shooting 60% threshold. Is there any other statistics that come to mind that coaches might be able to use as measuring sticks to point more towards this philosophy of playing basketball?
Yeah, so if you don't have like access to effective field goal or something, you can always say these are the shots we want. We want shots at the rim. We want open catch and shoot shots. So that's like specific to the shot quality. But in the original article we talked about that you referenced that I wrote, really the idea is this is all hand tracking. So it's and it's not like it's not publicly available information. So you'd have to do it yourself. Is the idea of like, are they making the correct cognitive decisions every time? So if there's a QB12, did they make the right decision or did they make the wrong decision? That stuff you'd have to track by yourself, but that's tracking that and giving the feedback back to the players with film and with specific instructions, but letting them play within their bounds is really, that's really going to be helpful, at least for progressing through the next level and developing feel in youth.
Kevin, as a high school coach, how comfortable would you feel implementing a system like this, top to bottom in your program? Obviously, this requires a lot of skill. It would require multiple players to be handling ball screens. It would be requiring a lot of different players to make decisions. Is that something that you feel comfortable with? You seem like a proponent of this philosophy as we've gone through our talk today.
I love the philosophy, and I think if you're going to do it, you have to go all in, and it has to be like Adam said. I really love the way that you phrased that, how shot quality and decision-making go hand in hand. That has to be something that's a priority at practice and how you're going to build your program, starting in, the lower levels of your program, because you need the players to fit into this. I can create all of the, 60% theoretical kick out beautiful corner threes that I want. But if I don't have shooters there at the high school level and I'm shooting it at 23%, like, it's not doing me any good. And so player development at lower levels for this is so, so important. And so if you're going to buy into it, you have to be bought in, and your players have to be bought in to their development to help get them to where they need to be in this system. That being said, I think the system is so rewarding when it's run right. And, Iisalo's success is just a proof of that I think players will buy in pretty fast. And it's an enjoyable style of basketball for them to play because it is free flowing. It's not walk the ball up, call a set, and maybe this play isn't called for me, so I know I'm not getting the ball. There's an element of surprise, whether that's offensively and especially defensively. And I think if you buy in and your players buy in, you'll really, reap what you sow when it comes to planting those seeds early on in their development. And like Adam said, you have to emphasize the decision-making part of it because feel is so important in any system that is going to be, conceptual.
I think we've done a good job of framing this as an offensive philosophy and less of a playbook. And I don't know that I would advocate for high school coaches taking up, and mirroring a lot of the plays. But I think from a philosophical standpoint, this is a home run to start taking these concepts to that level where players are starting to understand how to use pace to the maximum advantage, how to flow into offense seamlessly, how to create advantages, read advantages, make decisions. I think that's absolutely a home run. I've really enjoyed our time here together today. I really feel like this has kind of been a masterclass of Coach Iisalo's system. I know, Adam, you feel like there's a lot of meat left on the bone to pick at, and there's a lot more stuff that you could explain. Maybe we'll save that for another time. But in closing, I really just wanted to give both of you guys the opportunity to share with the audience, whether they're watching here right now or whether they're picking this up on the replay over the next few weeks or even years from now. Where could coaches follow your work if they wanted to get more from you? Coach Kevin, I'd start with you. I
got you. I upload all of my videos onto our YouTube at The Scoring Factory. And that's a lot of the conceptual stuff as I start to delve more into player development too. My Instagram at Coach Kevin Schott is going to be focused a lot on, player development and how we're developing the players in our programs to be more, have more feel, that IQ that people can't really quantify as where we are right now. All of those is where you can find me. But if you want to look deeper into some of the other concepts that we talked about today, whether it's the 7 seconds or less Suns, whether it's the Steve Kerr Warriors offense, even some of the Stampede cuts and those things that are in, the Nate Oates Alabama offense that has been taking college basketball by storm, please go find my videos at The Scoring Factory on YouTube.
Adam, where could our audience find more about you?
Yeah, Grizzlies Film on Twitter is the easiest. Not the greatest app, but unfortunately, it's the best place to talk basketball. Anything else from me you can find through there.
Yeah, this has been a wonderful conversation. I think both of you guys are kind of rising stars. You're very talented people at what you do, and I appreciate you helping me bring this conversation to our audience and really put a microscope on the things that Coach Iisalo is doing, because it's definitely modern. It's definitely something a lot of coaches are attracted to learning more about. So we're going to sign off there, guys. Hey, let's stay in touch. Let's do something else in the future together if you're interested in that. But this has been a very enjoyable conversation.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, Coach. It's been a pleasure. Adam, thank you. This was
Thanks.
This was wonderful.
Take care, guys.